Good morning, dear Dharma friends. Well, we woke up in the educational institution of life once again. What will be the challenges and lessons and blessings of today? One of the blessings will be mindfulness. One of the great blessings. Another will be compassion, kindness, self-forgiveness, other forgiveness. Breathing.
Having a co-host.
Oh, yeah, there's that. Hey, hello, Jimbo. You are co-hosted. Please keep an eye on the chat. And I'm making an announcement about the chat. I'm going to do it for a while, which is that I basically don't participate in the chat. I have enough to do. So if there's something you'd really like me to know, please send me an email, robert@robertbeatty.com. Or if Jim sees something happening in the chat that he thinks I should be apprised of, he'll let me know. I learned that some precious human tender feelings were hurt because I didn't respond to some things that I never saw. So, I was browsing through my poetry list, and I came upon this one. You will remember it, Jim. It was written by Martha Abshir in 1991. Haven't heard from Martha, or what was her husband's name? Martha and Bob, yeah.
Bob.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He went.
I haven't heard from him either.
They're living in, I bumped into them in Ashland 6 years ago. They're living there. So it's called Cowgirl on a Bucking Zafu. Sometimes when I meditate, I feel like a cowgirl on a bucking zafu. Usually when I sit, that's okay. Usually when I sit, my zafu trots along in that familiar gait of confusion or delusion. I think I know what I'm doing. Other times my zafu just ambles along, nibbling a tender shoot of the future here, a succulent leaf of the past there. Delicious, lazy, aimless, moving from pleasure to pleasure. I try to remember to be present. And sometimes she stops altogether, dozes off for a moment, falling asleep, nodding awake. It's all I can do to stay in the saddle. Other times she's antsy, restless, discouraged, can't get comfortable, nothing works. Why try anyway? I sometimes stay, sometimes I quit. Once in a while I can feel my zafu tremble and twitch in gradual warning, but other times she explodes with anger or fear, rage or terror. Bucking and running, snorting and farting, wild, out of control. I try to stay calm. Whoa, girl, I say, slow down, take it easy, breathe deep. It's just a feeling, let it go, let it be. Mostly, I just try to keep my seat. Martha Abshir. And as is our custom, we haven't the least idea what challenges will come our way today. I was having a conversation yesterday. It's a kind of conversation, the kind of which I have often, actually. You know, the first noble truth is that life is dukkha. First thing the Buddha taught is, as Ruth Dennison put it, there's always a leak in the canoe. But I find myself more often these days saying, life is really hard, isn't it? And then I remembered in this conversation that fabulous old book. It's old in a certain way. The Road Less Traveled, Sheldon Kopp. Remember how he started that? Life is difficult. So, where should we take refuge? Why not in being awake? The practice of awakeness. The beautiful, elegant map of consciousness that we get from the Buddha and all those who followed and embellished and developed. And the Sangha, the community of practice. Yesterday, I was talking about it. Sounds Canadian about it. And I was thinking of 150 generations or 120 generations. So my teacher's teacher's teacher, 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 teacher. A person who did their best to pass on, to manifest and then to pass on the teachings. And then they disappeared. Generation after generation, saying, here's the precious fruit. See if you can taste it. And we all do our best as we make this journey from birth to death. So I invite you to join in as you wish. I take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows me the way in this life. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya. I take refuge in the Dharma, the way of understanding and love. Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya. I take refuge in the Sangha, the community of mindful harmony. Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya. Let us honor the present moment with our presence. The past is a class of thoughts, memories. We imprison ourselves in thoughts. We import the past into now. We import the future into now. Let's awaken to that mysterious habit of falling into trance. In order to cultivate some stability, it's often recommended to come home to breathing. This breath right now. Of course, there isn't any other breath. There's just this. The breath exists within a context of myriad sensations, which are the body. You might discover that it's possible to be aware, to be the awareness that knows everything from feet to legs, to pelvis, to torso, to back, to fingers and hands and arms, to shoulders and neck, to the jaw and the lips and the cheeks and the eyes and the forehead and scalp. This that is life, breathing. There may be thoughts, sometimes very strange thoughts. Disconnected thoughts, thoughts that arise with no prompting. We can become very curious about what's happening. Breathing in happens, breathing out happens. Thinking happens. Planning, remembering happens. Wanting happens, wanting not happens. Sweet tranquility happens, agitation happens. Concentration happens. The mind can get very quiet. We have set sail on the greatest human adventure. It is the practice of the question, who and what am I? Am I these thoughts and opinions? Am I this liking and disliking? Am I this happiness or sadness? And it's decidedly not an intellectual pursuit. It's not even really a psychological pursuit. It is awakening. Each breath appears out of nowhere. There's then rising or expanding. In breathing. And then there's a change of direction, and then there's breathing out. And then the breath is over, and there's no trace of it. It's gone. Here, not here. here, not here. When awakening and coming into direct contact with body sensations, are they over there or down there? Are you, quote, up here in the mind, in the head, looking down at the hands? That's imagination. Where do thoughts happen? Where do you experience thoughts? resting in mindfulness and curiosity. Resting in some concentration, some stability of mind, some tranquility sometimes, or knowing the lack of tranquility. Same thing. We rest back in the miraculous reality of being awake. Among the most interesting objects of awakeness are the personality, the beliefs, the moods, the attitudes, the insecurities, the certainties. We bring the depth of vipassana consciousness. Vipassana, seeing things as they truly are. We are cultivating the garden of the heart with the support of mindfulness and concentration, curiosity. We can also somehow or another create. We can create thoughts, it would seem. There's some participation in thoughts. I aspire to love and accept myself exactly as I am in this moment. When I'm hurting, no matter how I'm hurting, no matter how I'm hurting, I aspire to hold myself in sweet compassion. When I encounter others who are not acting skillfully, who are perhaps acting heinously, I aspire for clarity of mind, clarity of heart. When I encounter the particulars and the vastness of the suffering of the world, the suffering of the powerless, of those left out or oppressed in whatever system, I aspire to hold them and all of us in sweet compassion. And in order to bear the magnitude of this undertaking, I aspire to develop great insight and wisdom and equanimity. This awakening is the great noble human undertaking. I aspire to be patient with myself and others. Please become aware of the body as it sits here. This is the body that will travel through today, that will speak and probably type and wash dishes and drive the car. Let us ground in it. Let us recognize mind and matter here together. And form the intention to be present through all of life's activities today. Before we know it, we'll be climbing into bed. The dream of today will have passed. How shall we use this one precious day? Some would say maintaining our mindfulness and compassion and loving kindness is the greatest achievement for a day. Of course, being mindful is not opposed to being productive. Different channels. May all beings, may all of us in this little gathering this morning, may we share with each other the merits of our practice. Please let's call to the altar of our hearts our teachers and mentors. You've had so many in your lifetime. Think of them. I sometimes remember my 5th grade teacher who saved me. Or my 10th grade teacher. Mr. Robinson. We come to be who we are because of the love of many. And please now bringing awareness into the body where it touches the cushion or the chair. Honoring the physicality of this body. And then, while holding a blessing, holding a prayer for each other, notice the practice of consciously preparing to open the eyes, and then opening the eyes and seeing. Seeing. And then we see other people. And sometimes seeing is interrupted. Damage to the eye, not enough light. In which case we see with the mind's eye. We think about, we create an image of another person or ourself. And I'm going to share a screen here, I hope. Yeah. I call to the altar of our hearts, Ruth Dennison. This picture was taken at my wedding at PIMC 10 years ago or so. Here, not here. Here, not here. When I first met Ruth, I was in Palo Alto visiting Tangpulu Sayadaw, a great ancient monk that I'd spent a week with in Burma a couple of years before. I was in the kitchen and Ruth came in and she had a bee sting in her hand. And at that point I was very much into body work and massage, and I offered to massage her swollen hand and arm. And after a little while, we traded our names, and I had heard of her. She was pretty famous then, even a long time ago. 45 years ago. And then we went to her truck, her camper truck. She was always a strange kind of traveler. She was quite amazing. And we talked for 6 hours. It was the first time I'd really had the privilege of being with a real teacher. She saw me. And after that, so many times I went out of my way. She wasn't pursuing me, I was pursuing her. It wasn't her job to pursue me. She was busy. She was a complicated person. As one of my Dharma teacher friends said one time at the grand opening at PIMC, she said, Ruth Dennison is a complicated package. She was She was a little girl in Prussia when the war started. She lived the war. She lived through the war. She wasn't such a little girl. She was a kindergarten teacher. Imagine that, being a kindergarten teacher in that circumstance. She was captured by the Russians. She got free. She got to the American side, and then she went back to try to find her auntie. And one of the horrible truths of her life was that she was raped more times than she could count. To ride a train was to be tortured, basically, to get anywhere. But she did manage to survive that. And she got to the West, and she married Henry, and then it's quite a lovely story. There's a beautiful book about her called Dancing in the Dharma. And but the trauma, all that trauma, really affected her. And there were times when she would sort of crumble internally. And there were times when when all that pain would come out sometimes, and it wouldn't all come out, obviously. She never had the opportunity, really. She never had the opportunity to do the work and could she have, given the monumental size of it? Don't know. But a brilliance came out of that trauma, a brilliance, a capacity of seeing people. I'm not sure why this comes to mind, but Doug Pullen won't mind me sharing it. He's shared it many times in public, that he was on a retreat early on with Ruth, and she came up to him and she said, "You need to love yourself more." And it blew his heart open. She saw him. And she saw me on many occasions, my tight little freaked out, terrified, confused person. So I invite us all to bring into our hearts the various lineages that we represent. No doubt your parents were less than adequate. I am a less than adequate. And, we're all so flawed. It's just challenging. But let's bring to the altar of our hearts our mentors. I spoke of my mentor, Don Nickerson, I visited recently, 95 years old. It was his poem I recited twice today. Here, not here. Here, not here. So I have another announcement or two. I guess another line of that would be gratitude. Let us be grateful for the kindness that we've been shown in our lives. Did it work? No, not yet. Here it goes. And I just wanted to share this with you. This weekend, starting Friday night, Restoring the Land, Renewing Ourselves. It's a virtual weekend retreat fundraiser for Brighton Bush Hot Springs. I am the MC, or the officiant is the way I'm thinking of it. Starts Friday night. You can find the details for that on the PIMC website, or you can go to brightonbush.org. No, brightonbush.com. There's a Women's Restorative Rejuvenation Circle with Kendall Summers coming up May 21. I spoke with a couple of people who did this the last time, and it was really a powerful thing. So I invite you to check in with Candle. There's a monthly metta for racial justice on Wednesday, May the 19th. This you can also find on the web. I believe this is in the Daily Digest, in the Weekly Digest. And then there's the gatherings, May 11th. May 11th, there's an NVC practice group with Doyle. And a Qigong half-day retreat online with Jim. May the 15th. God, the place is hopping, isn't it? All right. The place is hopping. I'm going to the center today, and I have purchased commercial grade and size plastic. I have a roll of 100-foot long, 25-foot wide plastic. And the Dharma hall is filled with all the furniture from the tenants downstairs, and also all the furniture from the living room. So we're going to cover it all with plastic because there's going to be some dust when they tear into that wall on the west side to create the ramp. So, enough from me. You remember the narcissist statement? Enough about me. What do you think of me? I would rather put it, how is the Dharma lighting up your life? What questions do you have?
Robert, I have a question. Well, actually, I have a suggestion. Can you hear me?
I can hear you fine.
Okay, good. It's come to my attention, it's come to our attention that there's a little command post at the bottom right in the chat where there's 4 different ways of setting the chat up. And what it's set up now.
I see. Okay, got it.
Host only. And some people would, or at least one person, would like to have everyone publicly and directly at the beginning of the sit, so that they could say good morning to each other. And we weren't aware of that happening because it was private directly.
Yeah, it's on. I just changed it.
Okay, but what came to me during meditation was a comment from, you remember the woman, the Dharma leader from the southeast, eastern coast, Panawati? Do you remember? Did you ever run into her? She's a black woman from the eastern part of the country, and she says, you white Dharma leaders, you got it all backwards. You invite people in and shut them all down in silence, and then later you invite them in for tea and cookies. In my Dharma center, we sit down and have a snack together and get to know one another and build trust among the people, and then we sit. She reverses it. And then this last weekend, I was listening to Ruth King's book on mindful of race, of racism.
Yep.
And she mentioned that white people approach the topic of race from an individual point of view, saying, I'm not racist, and the focus is individual, whereas a black person who's experienced racism comes into a conversation about racism from the point of view of, we have been experiencing this for generations, and it's still having an influence on everything I do. So it's not my issue, it's our issue. And so the different orientation of isolation and individualism is deep in the Western culture. And the marginalized people have, by necessity, developed a completely different orientation where the primary, the first thing is, how are we doing? Not how am I doing? How are we doing? And anyway, my suggestion is that we put that uh, chat system up at the beginning, where to spend a little time before we sit to look at the faces of the other people who have come in, and then, if you wish, send a private message, good morning, to whoever, and then we'll switch it to host only once you're ready to start leading the guided meditation. That's a long comment.
I think actually what I'm going to do is just leave it like it has been and let people be grown-ups about their practice. And I propose don't be chatting during the meditation. Act as though you were in the Dharma hall.
Great.
And it doesn't help to be, the purpose for the meditation time is to have some meditation. But let's not micromanage it, okay? Let's just leave it wide open, and people can use it as they wish.
Very good.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks for that. I, too, listened to that book last weekend. It was very helpful.
And do you remember hearing Panawati on any Dharma talks?
Yes, somewhere in the vagueness of history.
She is a trip. It's great to listen to her.
She was very prominent in one of the teachers' conferences I was at. We had a couple of really very fine connecting conversations. Yeah, I remember now. Okay, back to the group.
Robert, it's Darcy.
Hi, Darcy.
I just wanted to know if you and Jim could type out that book or tell us what that book is again.
Mindful of Race. And remind me that I never remember authors. Williamson? Is that right?
No, it's Ruth King.
Ruth King.
Ruth King.
Yeah.
I'm going to put a link in there. There's a review by Charles Johnson about the book that's almost as good as the book. But I'll get that and put it in the chat.
Thank you.
What are you discovering in your practice? Who are you? Who are you not?
Robert.
Janine, hello.
Hi there. So Jim's comments really touched a place in me. I've not read that book, but it's now on my list. That whole thing of I versus we. And, as a person with a disability growing up being blind, and even from my parents, I got the message that it was my responsibility to fit in. It was my responsibility to figure out how to make people feel comfortable with the fact that I was blind. It was my responsibility to learn all the adaptive skills and make all the changes and do whatever. And part of that's true. I that's helped me a lot in terms of making quote progress or whatever in this world, and that kind of fitting in and knowing how to deal with the corporate structure and getting jobs and all of that. But that sense of we, and we're in this together, and it's everybody's responsibility to figure out and be interdependent and and work with each other. There's something about that I find really lacking in this country in particular, although I think we're getting better at it. But it's really, thanks, Jim, that really touched something in me about how even I do this with other people and make it about how they should make me feel comfortable with whatever that is when I tone police or whatever I'm doing. So anyway, I just wanted to say thank you to Jim for sparking that in me, and for awakening that piece of both the sadness of all the times that's happened to me where I feel like I have to do the work. But also then reminding me that there is this we and that we're in this together. So thank you.
Thank you, Janine.
You're welcome, Janine.
And I'd like to make the personal request, and perhaps on behalf of PIMC, if there are ways you can illuminate that you're not included in the we, I will do my very best to improve the way that I am in the world. And we as an institution we're hot on the trail of this right now. We're going to have a committee we're going to build at PIMC a community of inclusion and love and compassion that fits the doctrine. So that's a very large commitment, and of course, and as I've learned recently, one doesn't know often what one doesn't know. Mm-hmm. You know, like the way that I was teaching the compassion practice, it's been taught that way for a couple of thousand years, and who knew? I didn't know that I was leaving out a big piece of it. And so fortunately we're capable of learning and growing up more. So of course it's not up to you, but any gifts you can give of really any gifts you can give of, well, this didn't work. Like as you asked me to talk about the diagrams when I put them up, and I fail so much of the time, but it's at least an endeavor that I do, because then the purpose is for everyone to be able to participate fully.
Yeah. Thank you. There's, I can't think of anything right now, but I'm happy to share. And I appreciate, there's so much of the awakeness that has to do with seeing. And so I appreciate the times when you say, and they're seeing in the mind. So, so that's, I brought all this up, not to lay any kind of a guilt trip or anything on anybody else. It's just, it's what life is, and learning how, and recognizing the ways that I've been complicit in my own kind of, and helplessness is not the right word, but in my own not showing up and saying, wait a minute, it's not all my responsibility. It's not my job to make somebody comfortable with the fact that I'm blind. Now, it helps me if they get comfortable, so I do that, right? But anyway, I'm digressing or wandering on. So thank you for listening, and I'm there to help in whatever way I can.
I heard neither digressing nor wandering on. I heard very important sharing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Robert?
It's Tim.
I think there's a little part, hi. I think there's a little part of this we thing. I'm not real sure exactly how to articulate it. In all of this, and in social justice issues, such like I think that if we look deeply into it, we'll find that there is no contradiction between opposition between our interests. And so that we thing, I think it helps it become, especially for people like me who are in that scale, I think more privileged. If you take racism or white supremacy, for instance, clearly this is harmful to people of color. But I think you only have to look a little ways deeper to see that it's harmful for white people, so-called white people. And I think that is real. And it's there to be looked at, and it dissolves the contradiction thing, the white savior or shit. I'm doing this because I'm a nice person with a big heart, all of which is baloney. It's baloney on one level, but so that we thing I think is huge in that very way. Hopefully that makes sense.
Thank you, Tim.
Good morning, Sangha. Thanks, Tim. It's Jessica. Sorry. Hi, Robert.
Hello, Tim. Hello. Hello. No, you're not Tim. You are Jessica. I'm not confused.
All right.
Well, maybe I am.
All of these comments together just, for me, really brought up that deep sadness I have for, to me, one of the key illnesses of our society, which is just this hyper-individualism. Mm-hmm. And it's there in so many ways. I mean, it's the Kool-Aid we've been given all our lives, in my mind. And just now, when Tim, you referenced about the we, I mean, that's the message that's really been hitting home more and more to me, which is, it truly is that, we do all sink or we do all swim. It's just, there would be so much more benefit if we could be just even a little more community minded and we minded as a nation. And so that just so speaks to me, and I'm really thankful for these various comments, because I just, that's my biggest sadness. That's one of my biggest efforts in metta, is just to try and truly have people, if we really did see the fellow being as ourselves, and if we really tied into our happiness and prosperity being completely tied in with that of our fellow human beings. I mean, yeah. So thank you very much.
One of the conscious, intentional purposes for the creation of BIMC has been, is, and will continue to be the opportunity to actually be together and to experience our common destiny, to create our common destiny. And to do that with the help of deep meditation and lots of communication. And that's really why we have a community, and to support us in our practice. It's very much a part of our mission. That's why we've gone to the much longer. Who knew? But that's why we had voice amplification and hearing devices. The second meeting we had at PIMC, which is 16 years ago. That's why when we needed to replace the sewer, which was a crisis, we took the stairs out and put a ramp in because we knew we would someday finally get a ramp happening. And that's why we've been going to these lengths to get the ramp to happen, is to get everybody in. And so we will continue that to around the racial justice issues and all the ways we can move toward non-exclusion and invitation and welcoming. That's our mission. Who would have thunk a $55,000 ramp would turn into a $1.3 million remodel of the meditation center, including seismic upgrading? Who knew? But we're in it. We're committed. We signed a contract with the city that we will do the whole thing in the next 7 years, or they will try to shut us down. Why? Why would we do that? Let's include everybody.
It's Kat. I'd like to share a way that I feel like the Dharma is really working in my life right now. Which is, there's a quote from a show that's like 20, 30 years old called Sports Night. And there was a quote in that show that stayed with me for like 20 years, which is that dumb people surround themselves. If you're dumb, surround yourself with smart people. If you're smart, surround yourself by smart people who disagree with you. Which I love, and I took that on, but until this practice sort of was like, cool, I'll be smart. I'll surround myself with smart people who disagree with me so I can convince them that they are wrong. Like that was sort of, and I didn't realize I had that thought until entering a PhD program where there's lots of people who disagree with me on pretty fundamental issues. And I'm like, oh, cool, my role is to teach them how wrong they are. And I'm very grateful for this practice. And I heard, it's great that we've been talking about Ruth King. I heard her speak on Sunday. I had my kids, so I heard like 10% of it. But talking about the balance of compassion and wisdom. And if you only have one, this was actually Mary Stankiewicz saying, like, if you have just compassion, it can very quickly turn into what Pema Chodron calls idiot compassion, where you're just like, I'm compassionate for everyone and everyone is wonderful. And also I might be enabling really terrible behavior with just pure compassion. So that balance of compassion and wisdom. And I have definitely had to, not that I'm so wise, God forbid, but definitely had to be, have a lot more work to do in the compassion arena. I am very quick to shut down a perspective or shut down an argument if it doesn't fundamentally agree with where I am in that moment. And this practice has taught me so much about the slowing down process and the open-hearted process that I can have even with those who I fundamentally disagree. And it turns out that the universe works in really amazing ways, because my first year practicum, which is like a day a week that I go in and work with patients, my practicum advisor is someone I fundamentally disagree with on like huge elements of psychology and how we should be treating people and all sorts of things. And so that's been really helpful to sort of have to work this muscle with him on a very daily basis. Well, at least a weekly basis. But and the only time I just want to like be really clear for myself of where I have to find that boundary is like that is a James Baldwin quote, which is just, we can disagree and still love each other unless your disagreement is rooted in my oppression and denial of my humanity and right to exist. Which, so that helps me set up really healthy boundaries around, for example, that I'm non-binary and I'm around a person at my work who is frequently misgendering people, like actively misgendering trans people. And so that is not a case where I have to just sort of sit and be in compassion. That is a situation where I feel very comfortable saying that is completely unacceptable and, you know, make that less about compassion and more about action. Anyway, I just wanted to share my gratitude for this practice, my gratitude for the concrete and tangible ways I see it working to make me less of a jerk.
Thank you, Kat. I had an interesting, unpleasant, visceral response when you used the word jerk. My father called me a jerk. And it's one of those words that is, way deep in the psyche. It's like, don't call yourself that. So, it's funny. Our conditioning can be to anything, can't it? That's a great quote. Would you send it to me? The Baldwin quote? Well, it's 8:20. Anybody sitting with something you'd like to share and you're just holding back?
Robert, it's Darcy again.
Hello, Darcy again.
A really small thing is that one of the reasons I love these Zoom meetings is that I can sit close up to my computer. I can see everybody and hear everybody. All these years, I had no idea that there was a hearing-assisted devices available at PIMC. And I can't hear in crowds. I'm completely deaf on one side and reduced on the other.
Huh.
And I always kind of feel like I'm drifting, kind of like an outsider because I can't hear. So I just wanted to say that I was really happy to hear that inclusion was there. Unfortunately, I'm not in Portland anymore, but I don't know, that just kind of touched me because I didn't know that was available. That's great.
You know, there's something kind of, I don't know, what's the word? There's something pretty neat about the hearing-assisted process at PIMC. Of course, it requires a transmitter. And the transmitter could be anywhere out in the open there, but where it is right behind the Buddha. Next time you're at PIMC, if you get to come, look behind the Buddha, and right behind his head there's an antenna, and that's where the signal comes from.
That's excellent. I love that.
I thought it's a little humor as well, but it's people sometimes discover it and they say, "What's this?" And well, it's the FM broadcast antenna.
Awesome.
And FYI, when we go back to PIMC, we're obviously going to be doing a hybrid process. And I'm investigating how to have 2 complete setups, one in the living room where most of the classes happen and one in the Dharma hall, so that if you're living at a distance, you can really, and you'll really be able to hear. And you'll be able to hear everybody in the community as well. It's one of the things that came with the sound system. That room has horrible acoustics. I mean, it's got I hired a guy very early. I hired a guy who did churches and rock concerts and stuff. And he came and he clapped his hands and he said, 1001, 1002. Can you hear that reverb? This room has impossible acoustics. And so then we got this fancy, we've done a lot of work to make it work. But also we require people, and people sometimes balk. They don't want to use it. I don't need the microphone because I can speak loud. Well, actually, it doesn't work. And so that's one of the generosities of people who are in the Dharma hall. We ask people, please be generous to our hearing impaired friends, because they can't hear you. So thanks for speaking up. And I wish you'd known. I wish I'd announced it more.
Well, I had worked on Sundays at the hospital, so I didn't have many chances to come in. I'm glad that we're here on Zoom for that reason.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Are you a nurse, doctor?
I am a newly graduated nurse. I have a 2-month-old diploma.
Hooray!
Hooray! Now I'm just waiting for the NCLEX exam, so I'm busy studying.
That was a hell of a lot of work, wasn't it? I watched my daughter do that. Huh. Little do most people know who nurses are, or the competence, the vast competence nurses bring to the job. Quite something.
The Dharma practice definitely helps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, onwards. Let's close with may all beings be happy, and knowing that it really means may all beings receive all blessings. What do you think? Or we could do Bhavatu Sabbe Mangalam. That's got history and class. Let's do that. You ready? Please unmute as you wish. Bhavatu Sabbe Mangalam. Bhavatu Sabbe Mangalam. Bhavatu Sabbe Mangalam. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you, dear friends. Live long and prosper, Hadley.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
If you're a Klingon, your hands naturally go this way. Is it the Klingon? No, there's someone else anyway. I think that's, who knows?
Okay.
Bye, everybody. Thanks.
Blessings, beautiful friends.
Here we go. Gonna make the big jump. Goodbye, dear friends on Facebook and YouTube. Happy trails.